Good day. So today we are going to talk about the most interesting sequence, which is the quadratic sequence. So the quadratic sequence is denoted, its general formula now is this. General formula, it's what Tn is equal to An squared plus Bn plus C. So this is the quadratic sequence. So one thing about the quadratic sequence that you can notice is that it's having something called what? The second difference. So it's different from a linear sequence because now the quadratic sequence, it has a second difference. So I'll try maybe to talk about the formula, and then we do a equation so that maybe you get to understand more about this quadratic sequence. So the quadratic sequence, it's when you are given numbers or a pattern of numbers, and then in these numbers, when you try to subtract between the consecutive numbers, you get a different difference, whereby now you still have to subtract the difference that you are getting to get the second difference. So in this quadratic sequence, now you have to find the value of A, you have to find the value of B, and you have to find the value of C. So you have to determine the value of A, you have to determine the value of B, and you have to determine the value of C. So let's say you are given a pattern as T1, T2, T3, T4. So the first one here, you do a zigzag. So this zigzag, it means that T2 subtracted by T1, and then T3 subtracted by T2, then T4 subtracted by T3. So that's the zigzag. And then because now this here, this is your what? It's your first difference. So your first difference won't have the same number. That's why now you still have to do another zigzag for you to get what? The second difference. So now the zigzag, the second zigzag, it's what? It's now what? T3 minus T2 minus T2 minus T1. And then let's maybe try not to mix these two here. And then you have another zigzag here, which will be what? T4 minus T3 minus T3 minus T2. So this here, it's your what? It's your second difference. So these formulas will help you when you are given an unknown number in the sequence. So you try to remember this, that there's a first difference. The first difference is T2 minus T1, T3 minus T2, T4 minus T3. So this one won't give you the same number here. So the first difference in a quadratic sequence, it won't give you the same number. But you then have to calculate the difference again of the first, using the first difference. So we have the first difference, then now we have to calculate the second difference to say that this T3 minus T2 is subtracted to what? This T2 minus T1. And then it also continues to say that this T4 minus T3 is subtracted to what? To T3 minus T2. So now what I said is that you have to identify the value of A and B and C. So this first one is giving you the value of C, meaning that A plus B plus C has to give you what? T1. So your A plus B plus C has to equal to what? The term 1 or the first term. And then for you to get the value of B now, it's what? 3A plus B, it is equals to what? The first difference. So for you to get the value of B, it's what? 3A plus B is equals to what? The first difference. So then to get the value of A, it's what? It's 2A is equals to what? The second difference. So these are the formulas. So you have A plus B plus C gives you it has to equal to T1 for you to get C. And then when you need to determine B, you use 3A plus B, and it is equals to what? The first difference, which is T2 minus T1. And then for you to get the second difference or the value of a, now we want 2a, this 2, it says second, so it's you don't change this 2 here, it's a second difference. So now it will say 2a is equals what, the second difference, which is t3 minus t2 close bracket minus t2 minus t1. So in simplicity, let me try to put these formulas here. Now for you to get, it's the first formula is a plus b plus c is equals what, t1. So this is the first formula for you to determine the value of what, c. And then the second formula is what, 3a plus b is equals to t2 minus t1 for you to get the what, the value of b. And then for value of a is t2 is equals to what, t3 minus t2 close bracket t2 minus t1. So these are the formulas that you need for the quadratic sequence. I hope they now they will make sense once we get to do the example that I'm having here. I'm saying it's an example, but it's an exam based question, because now it will help you to get to understand the use of the formulas. So now you have everything that you need for the quadratic formula. You now know how to determine the value of a, you use this formula. And then you now know how to determine the value of b, you use this formula. And then you know how to determine the value of c, you use this formula. So the first one is what, this is the first thing to do. You must first determine the value of a. And then you substitute the value of a here to determine what, meaning this one is for the second step. And then this one is for the third step. So you must first determine the value of a, and then you determine the value of b, and then you determine the value of c. So that's how you work up your quadratic sequence. The question I have here is, the question is that it's 3, 6, 11, and 18. So you have 3, 6, 11, and 18. You do what? It means that this 3 is term 1, this 6 is term 2, this 11 is term 3, this is term 4. So then it means now you do what? You do your zigzag. You zigzag, you zigzag, you zigzag. So your zigzag is saying that t2 minus t1, and then t3 minus t2, and then t4 minus t3. So once you have this, and then now you try to determine what is your t2 is 6, and then t1 is what, is 3. What is your t3 is 11, and then t21 is 6. What is your t4? 18, and then t3 is 11. So now what is the answers for these two? 6 minus 3 is what? Is 3. So meaning that for the first difference is what? We have 3, 5, and 7. This what is what? Our first difference. So that's the thing about the first difference. You see, the values are different. You have 3, you have 5, you have 7. They are not the same. So now you have to what? You have to continue for you to get what? The same value. Now you say what? 5 minus 3. 7 minus 5. What is 5 minus 3 is 2. What is 7 minus 5 is 2. So now you have what? You have your, this is your what? Your second difference. So now you have your second difference. So your second difference now is what? It's 2. So now you have everything that you need here. So now that you have everything that you need here, you now have to determine what the general formula. So the general formula is Tn is equal to an squared plus bn plus c. So this is the general formula. So now let's put it in a clean slate so that we can get to understand here. Is that let's erase. So now we're creating a clean slate. So now we need to determine the value of A, value of B, and the value of C. So now I say that for you to determine the value of A is like 2A is equal to the second difference. Then for you to determine the value of B is 3A plus B is equal to what? The first difference. So for you to determine the value of C is A plus B plus C is equal to what? T1 is equals to T1. So now we are having here, so it means that this is the first one to do, this is the second one, this is the third one. So the first one is that now once you have a number in front, or you have you are given a variable, and then in front of the variable is a coefficient. This you have learned it in algebraic equation. You must what? Divide by 2, or you multiply by the reciprocal, because now we are not focused in solving for x or unknown. We just do it simple. We just divide by the coefficient. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So meaning that the value of a is now 1. So then you use this formula to say that 3a plus b is equals to 3. Substituting what? A is equals to 1. Meaning that in the place of a you must put 1. Say 1 plus b is equals to 3. 3 multiplied by 1 is 3 plus b is equals to 3. Then now this 3 will get to the other side, because it's positive, now will be negative. 3 minus 3, then b is equals to what? 0. So now the value of b is 0. So now we have to determine the value of c. Now, so the value of c, you do what? A plus b plus c is equals to 3. We have to substitute the value of b